This is Covering the Spread, part of the FanDuel Podcast Network.
We've got kind of a sneaky fun game to close out week number 12 tonight as the Chicago Bears head to Minneapolis to take on the Minnesota Vikings. Justin Fields back for the Bears. We've got Joshua Dobbs, the good story for the Vikings. Honestly, not a terrible game, even under the assumption that we don't get Justin Jefferson back for tonight. We're going to break down that game from all angles, talking about the side, total, player props, and more with Ryan Williams getting his read on this game and getting you ready for Monday night. This is Covering the Spread right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and FanDuel Research. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a managing editor of digital media for FanDuel Research, joined here as I am every Monday by Ryan Williams. Check him out on Twitter at RyanAlexander_W. Ryan, it is a delight to have you on the show for today. How you doing?
Oh, it's great to be here, Jim. Happy Monday after the holiday. So we're back to the grind. Got a nice little reprieve in. We got whatever that was, 3 out of the 5 days around the holiday that had football to them, which is exciting. And we got one more to cap off an exciting week 12 here. So I'm excited to get after it with you.
Yeah, and all the big games this weekend lived up to the hype because you had the Michigan-Ohio State game, obviously. Thanksgiving games were not competitive, but they were fine. You had the Michigan-Ohio State game. You had Philadelphia versus Buffalo. I mean, honestly, that's all you can kind of ask for as a football fan. And tonight, we get to talk to you. And how relieved are you, Ryan, that it's no longer Tyson Bagent? Because you're a Bears fan, how torturous would that have been to talk about this entire show talking Tyson Bagent? Instead, we can talk Justin Fields, which I feel like to me is kind of what makes this game way more exciting than it otherwise would be.
Yeah, I mean, the Bears have to see what they have. They have to see what they have in Justin, and whether you're putting him out on the market or whether you're going to keep him, you got to let him showcase the talents. And so I think we've seen how explosive this offense can be with him being on the field. You love to see the progressions, coming to merit. And this is going to be an interesting battle for them. NFC North, Eberflus's record against the NFC North hasn't been great in his tenure. They have to go on the road here and play against a team that's playing for their playoff lives, essentially. So I expect everything to be thrown Justin's way tonight, and with Brian Flores' defense, and we'll see how he handles that. But yeah, we do have a good one there, and even with the changes in the markets, you can see that bettors are very excited about getting action on this one.
They definitely are. We're going to break down the movement in those markets that Ryan alluded to here in a bit and get you ready for Monday night from a top-down perspective. But first, a reminder to make sure you're subscribed to Covering the Spread wherever you get your podcast. Back to a regular schedule for this week, Monday through Friday shows here with us. And then, of course, primetime Tom Vecchio filling you in to get you ready for Thursday and Sunday night football, all right here in the same podcast. So you can find the Monday through Friday shows also on the FanDuel YouTube page and on FanDuel TV Plus. To get FanDuel TV Plus, you can go to FanDuel.com/watch and log in with your FanDuel account, or download the FanDuel TV Plus app on Amazon Fire, Apple TV, or Roku devices. Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there is no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, totals, and more. So visit FanDuel and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas under an agreement with Kansas Star Casino LLC. First online real money wager, only $5 pregame money line wager required, $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG in Colorado, Iowa, Michigan, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Kentucky, Tennessee, and Virginia. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342 in Arizona. 1-888-789-7777. or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut, 1-800-9-WITH-IT in Indiana, 1-800-522-4700 visit ksgamblinghelp.com in Kansas, 1-877-770-STOP in Louisiana, visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland, 1-800-GAMBLER.net in West Virginia, 1-800-522-4700 in Wyoming. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text OPEN-Y in New York. Let's dig in now to the Bears at the Vikings. We're right now at FanDuel Sportsbook. Got the Vikings as 3-point favorites, -105 on the -3 for the Vikings. Total for this game is 43.5. And Ryan, throughout the week this week, this spread tightened because it was 3.5 and it's now 3. In fact, it's only -105 on the -3, as I alluded to. So there's been some interest in the Bears in this game, moving this number onto 3. Do you agree with that movement in favor of the Bears?
Yeah, some would agree, especially if we're not getting Justin Jefferson back. That's probably worth more than half a point, but here we are. It probably feels more like a push, Jim. If we're being honest, this is one of those close games. The Vikings find themselves in one-score games all of the time, and you feel like the way that the Vikings defense plays and how the Bears defense has played as of late, it speaks to this being a close game. Now, I will say the Tyreek Stevenson injury for the Bears side is one that's a little bit concerning when you're talking about stopping Addison and those guys. And I think that, the tight ends in this matchup will have a fairly good day. And we'll talk about that. But, I really have a hard time with the line here of feeling like what's appropriate. I mean, if you got the Bears at 3.5 earlier on this week, I feel like you feel really good about that. I'd probably lean to taking the money line option in any one of these markets, just because it feels like such a close spread. Now the over is another, interesting topic that we can get into, Jim, because well, I should say we got two. So the over is interesting because the primetime under is hitting 12-1 this year. We know what that is, 43.5, like kind of sitting around that key number. It feels like we could get some weird and wonky things happening to make this, to have this feel over, especially after the disappointment on Sunday Night Football with points being scored by the Ravens and the Chargers. So I am a little bit interested in taking the over. What I will say about the Viking side of things, though, if people are taking the favorite here, we had, I believe, was it 12? Yeah, 12 favorites won yesterday on Sunday. And so Minnesota winning would be 13, which is, I want to say, like the first time in 25 years, if not longer, if not ever. Like, that's just such an unheard of stat where the favorites are hitting at such a high key rate. So, for Vikings takers, that's a pretty interesting one to get a hold of, which probably makes me want to lean the Bears even more so, just to rewrite history there. But I do feel like this will be a close game. I do feel like there's enough pieces in this game to kind of skew it to be over with just how aggressively the defenses are playing. And that's kind of my read right now. What say you, Jim?
Yeah, you mentioned the defenses, and honestly, the defenses are a big part of why I lean towards Minnesota here. And my numbers do show value on Minnesota. I've got the favorite by about 6 in this matchup. That feels a bit heavy to me. I think that it's kind of hard to get a read on what the Bears' projected efficiency is with Justin Fields, just because they had that very slow start to the year. But ever since, week 3 or week 4 or so, he's played a lot better, and this offense has been a lot better. And you could explain that being like, okay, he had DJ Moore, added him into the fold, took a while to get acclimated with that rapport there. And so it's hard to find a good sample on this Bears offense. And do you go with the very small sample, which I tend to like small samples personally, like if I can feel that it's a more representative sample. And even when I kind of do play it that way, I still wind up leaning towards Minnesota here, in large part because their defense has been very good. Now, the Bears' defense has been awesome against the rush, and that's been a pretty big surprise to me. I did not expect that at all coming into this year, but they've been very good against the rush. The Vikings have been good against the rush too, but they've also been better against the pass, and they've also been a lot better on late downs, which is kind of where the Flores thing comes in, because he can kind of get some weird and wacky stuff going for you on third down. So I do show value in the Vikings right now, -3 at -105 at FanDuel Sportsbook. I think it's a pretty good number. Now, you mentioned the total. I've got the 44.1, so pretty much in line with you, where slight interest in the over. It's a stay away from me, but like, I don't think this number is being like overinflated because it's a primetime game, which can sometimes occur. So I agree with you. I think the 43.5 is pretty appropriate, but it's an interesting game. And I think that, honestly, Ryan, I think both defenses might be a tiny bit underrated. The Bears specifically against the rush being underrated, but the Vikings overall, given how well they played recently, I think they're a pretty solid defense right now too.
Yeah, I would say that too, and we know that they love to bring pressure. So we'll definitely get to see how Justin Fields is feeling early on in this game, and what their schemed offense is going to be to counteract that.
Now, let's start things off here by talking about the Chicago Bears props, because there's no Deontay Foreman for tonight. So Khalil Herbert could have potentially a nice role here for the Bears. Also, we saw DJ Moore kind of get resuscitated last week with Justin Fields being back. So focusing on the Bears props first, Ryan, where are you seeing value there?
Yeah, I think we definitely got to start off with the Khalil Herbert thing, because this guy was, really taking the league by storm when he got his opportunities, and you could see why they were making him the lead guy and moving on from David Montgomery last year. It's interesting that he comes in at 53.5 from his rushing yard total, which is the same as Justin. So really no idea for the books on what to do there, both at -114. I mean, Justin's is really enticing just when you're thinking about, him having to deal with pressure. But I think, they could obviously look to get Khalil Herbert involved in multiple facets. And I don't mind, getting in on the rushing and receiving prop at 66.5. I think, the receiving yards for Khalil Herbert before injury were, kind of right around, definitely in the double digits, kind of around the 15, 16, 19. I believe he had 2 games with 20 receiving yards. And so I think if he can get that juice going, I think it makes that number really enticing for Khalil Herbert. Justin Field props, I think, if we're saying that he's going to be showcased, I'm interested in getting action on him. We have yet another Justin Field yardage prop line that's under 200 yards passing. Does he get there? I don't know, but we've seen, like, if he's able to, kind of wheel and deal, and if this is a close game and kind of a neutral game script, I think he can hit that number. He's had big plays to DJ Moore multiple times. Will the ancillary pieces, if Tyler Scott can connect on one of these deep balls that he's been getting, I think he could, get in on that number, especially if we're, getting into some wacky game scripts. His number on touchdowns is +172 to throw for 2. Which I think is also an interesting one, because we have seen him, we have seen the offense be schemed to kind of look for guys in the end zone instead of just what we think of with, Jalen Hurts or Lamar or Josh Allen when they get in the red zone and try to run. So I think they are trying to establish him as a passer, and I want to get in on those yards. Now, for the role players, obviously, like DJ Moore, anytime he's out there with Justin Fields, like, you got to look at his number. 60.5 feels right. I'm just going to take that number because it feels good. Cole Kmet's number is absolutely atrocious at 39.5, and atrocious in the way of, like, I think he kind of smashes this number. I have an interesting Cole Kmet prop that we'll talk about at the end, but he's got a really good rapport with Justin, and is really coming to his own when we're, just talking about not only being the security blanket, but really just kind of getting open. And to be honest, Jim, it's just hard to trust the other guys in this offense right now from a pass catching standpoint. Darnell Mooney has multiple games where he's had 1 target or 0. And Equinemius St. Brown is just not out there enough to be, reasonable. And then we have, the kid Tyler Scott, who's playing in on special teams, and we don't have any props for him. But I would be interested in getting him, like, on a, seeing what his alt line would be or something like that, because this guy is just running deep routes all the time. So for me, I think it starts, of course, with Justin Fields, because he's the catalyst of this offense. I think Cole Kmet props along the board. I love his touchdown prop at over 2-1, and yardage prop at 39.5. I just don't think it's reasonable. And then anywhere that I could get DJ Moore, I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I think Those all make a lot of sense to me. The other one I want to check out is the Darnell Mooney total reception prop. Under 2.5 is -160. I would like that to be a little bit less, but I think that unders from Mooney are enticing because they're getting the other guys more involved. You mentioned St. Brown getting more involved, Tyler Scott getting more snaps here. Kind of like you said, it feels like they kind of want to see what they've got in this guy. So I think that Mooney unders are enticing to me. 25.5 is the number at FanDuel Sportsbook, -114. I'm considering that one is what I would say. But I do want to go back to the rushing props because Herbert, again, rushing plus receiving, 66.5 is -114. I think if you're going to bet Khalil Herbert for this game, that's the route I would want to go. Because, again, the Vikings have been pretty good against the rush so far this year. Now, I believe they're facing a pretty good number of, they're facing a pretty high rate of passes on early downs, which means that teams, I think, respect their rush defense too. It's one thing to be good against the rush. It's another thing for teams to respect you against the rush. And I think it seems like both those things are in place for the Vikings. That could be, that's why I'd want to go towards the rushing plus receiving, which you alluded to with Herbert at 66.5 there. That also could help the Cole Kmet and DJ Moore props you alluded to on the Bears side of things as well. Let's talk about the Vikings here. No Justin Jefferson likely for this game. Not an official word on that yet, but it does seem unlikely he's able to go for tonight. And that's to reflect in the prop market. You're not going to catch them sleeping when it comes to that. But they've looked pretty good with Joshua Dobbs so far. So any value on the Vikings side of things right now?
Yeah. Like you said, Jim, this is a strong rush defense that Chicago's been putting out there for some time. So, going to be tough sledding for Madison. I think Ty Chandler is interesting to get some props on just from the pass catching receiving props. Although Madison's receiving line at 10.5 is one that I definitely want to look into because I think he can get that on two catches really quickly. I do like his talent. I'm just not confident and he gets there on the rushing number. So when we're talking about pass catchers for the Vikings, let's talk about this. This might be one of the last games that we get, TJ Hawkinson to be the alpha here. And I know people will look at Addison and kind of think about him, but Hawkinson and the numbers coming in at where it feels right. 62.5, like they got something going there where his numbers higher than Addison. You would probably expect that to be kind of the inverse, but Hawkinson, with Dobbs, I'm looking here, we have target totals of 12, 15 and 7 in the three games with Dobbs as quarterback. And, going up against this Bears team in the matchup here, it just reeks of TJ Hawkinson just going out there and smash. So I might have to look at some alt lines with TJ Hawkinson. When you look at receiving yards, I mean, he's plus money to go at 70 if we're betting, the 62, 62.5 number. Like what's another 8 to get some plus money on that, which feels really enticing. Outside of those guys, I do think that Addison finds a way to get going here. The secondary for the Bears just has not been consistent enough to be able to stop guys. You have it written into his reception prop at 3.5. It's -148, which would have been really, really enticing for me to get some action on. TJ Hawkinson at 6.5 is plus money. That's one that I might toy around with as well too. But the other guys, the ancillary pieces of Brandon Powell, KJ Osborne, the running backs, like I just really don't have any interest there. But I will say, like I said, this is the Vikings' opportunity to kind of stay in the playoff race. I do expect them to be able to empty the clip here and really get these guys going, especially without Justin Jefferson. That just allows so much work to be had there. But Dobbs is pretty efficient. He doesn't rely on his arm all too much. And so for me, looking at that prop is nice. Also, you're looking at plus money too with him on passing touchdowns, I should say, at plus 106. So I think I might have a sprinkling on that to keep it exciting. But do you have any read, Jim, on these running backs? Because I really don't love them today in this game.
Yeah, they still favored Madison last week. They did get Chandler more involved. Last week, the snaps were 64% for Madison versus 30% for Chandler, and Chandler was better. So that's why I'm on board with you, Ryan, where I'd rather just stay away from it because I don't really want to project how they'll shift usage for a guy. And honestly, Madison's been underwhelming the entire year, but yet they haven't really changed his role that much. Like Chandler the past 2 weeks has gotten more work, but it hasn't been a legitimate shift towards Chandler being like the 1A or anything like that. So for me, I don't really want to assume that a team will make a shift like that unless I get a reason to think that they will, that something changes, something like that. So personally, I think I'm going to stay with you and just kind of avoid them altogether, whether it be the rushing yardage number for Madison or the number for Chandler. Hawkinson, I think, is enticing. 62.5, as you alluded to. He's getting some deep targets now again, which he was not doing earlier this year. He's had 16,000 injuries throughout the year as well, but seems healthy enough at this point. So I don't think that he is all that bad at 62.5. I think if I were going at a number on the Viking side of things, that is probably where I would lean. Now, the one I want to highlight here on the Viking side of things, actually in the touchdown scorer prop, that's where I think if you want to dabble in this backfield, you could check out Madison plus 160 at FanDuel Sportsbook. He did handle 5 out of 10 red zone chances for the team this past week. He's had a lot of red zone work already so far this year. Plus 160 is not a bad number, and I don't care as much about a bad matchup when it's a touchdown number because it's kind of, getting flukiness towards the goal line. So I think of the Vikings props overall, I would be tempted by the Hawkinson receiving yardage one, but to me, my favorite is probably the Madison touchdown prop at plus 160. I think that's probably where I'd lean. Any thoughts for you in the touchdown market for tonight? I know you mentioned Cole Kmet at plus 220. Is that your favorite one of the night?
Yeah, Cole Kmet is probably my favorite one. I think I will, Ty Chandler at plus 250 if I'm not liking Madison. That's an interesting one. But even more so than that, I think the Josh Oliver at plus 750, they've kind of been running some 12 personnel. And I love TJ Hawkinson so much that it's just like when they get into the red zone, am I going to see Josh Oliver out there hitting pay dirt? TJ might do all the dirty work and then Josh Oliver might pay for it on the back end. So that one's definitely enticing for me on the Viking side. On the Bear side, it's the usual suspects, and they come in, at that reasonable rate. But I think, some of these other ancillary guys are interesting, i.e. a Tyler Scott at 900, with him just getting more work in, Mooney comes in at plus 400. And I'm not really sure that he has leaps and bounds secured that number 2 role over Tyler Scott. So just getting the better odds on him is pretty nice there. If we look at just anywhere in the popular market here, Jim, before we close it out, if we go to the popular market and we go to game specials, which is what I was talking about with Cole Kmet there, to have 25 plus receiving yards in each half is plus 650. Definitely like getting in on that number. I think that has some merit to it to just have a little fun tonight.
Okay. That is, as you mentioned, the game specials tab and the popular tab at FanDuel Sportsbook. Cole Kmet, 25 plus receiving yards in both halves. And like you said, we're expecting kind of a pretty neutral script here, and that's what would lend itself. And I think the Bears will be a bit more pass heavy in the opening script as well, given they've got Fields back, given that the Vikings are pretty good against the rush. And so I think that's kind of where you get into these numbers, where it's in both halves, is you get a pretty neutral script. And I think that is pretty good for Kmet. So 25 plus receiving yards for Kmet in each half, plus 650 at FanDuel Sportsbook. Under the popular tab, game specials, the plus 500, plus 1900 is where you can find that Kmet one. Any other props you want to highlight, Ryan?
Yeah, I was going to say, I do have one more, and that's Cairo Santos. Yes, we're talking kicker props. Why not, Jim? It's 12 weeks, and we haven't gotten into kicker props as much as we should. But Cairo Santos on the over number at 6.5, plus 110. I think that's very interesting, especially when you're looking at the implied points for the Bears. Like, how do they get to that number without getting some field goals here? I mean, that's two field goals and an extra point there for him to get the total kicking points. And so I definitely like him getting in on that number as well.
And they're indoors, Ryan, and the Bears play in wind every freaking week. I remember looking 2 years ago, Justin Fields game logs, and he hadn't played a game in like less than 10 mile per hour winds like the entire year, but they're playing indoors, and that helps for Cairo Santos as well. So Cairo Santos to get 6.5 or more, or to get over 6.5 total kicking points, plus 110 at FanDuel Sportsbook. We should we should petition the new Bears Stadium to be a dome. Like, I'll donate the McCaskies like $10 if they'll make it a dome. Consider that my contribution to the cause to get Justin Fields to not play in wind anymore.
I'll second that, Jim. At least a retro roof. Like, what are we doing here?
Right,
2023.
We're up to $20 to fund the retractable roof out in Arlington Heights. That is Ryan Williams. Make sure you check him out on Twitter at RyanAlexander_W. Ryan, a delight to have you on the show once again for today. And we'll talk to you once again tomorrow. Talk about the futures market because, again, things pretty spicy right now in both playoff pictures. We'll talk to you about that again tomorrow. Enjoy the games tonight.
Yeah, you as well, Jim. Can't wait to chat tomorrow. And good luck to everybody with their bets. Catch you on the flip side.
Alrighty, again, find Ryan on Twitter at RyanAlexander_W. I am on Twitter at Jim Sonis. You can find me on Threads at Jim.Sonis. You can find FanDuel Research on Twitter at FanDuel Research. Want to thank you all for tuning in for today. Good luck to you tonight with your bets across Monday Night Football, and we'll talk to you once again tomorrow. This has been Covering the Spread right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network.